makes a lot of sense. But it's been said 1976 already, and that the policy was not really taken in this situation because market forces have their own, influence on how we get into behavior. So accordingly, even at state level, you have agricultural marketing boards, and all organizations, institutions are created, but we still are not able to move. We're not still able to do that. So it's a serious issue here. There are suggestions, there are policy advices, correct policy advices, but somehow it's not getting into translating into real policy making. Except, of course, there are exceptions. There have been a lot of good work because of which we have survived till now. It's not that policies are all bad, but they have been very good. But we are not able to make that last mile jump. The government has also tried, not by its own steam, or also tried to use government organizations, non-government organizations, uses civil society organizations, social enterprises, private enterprises, in different forms of arrangements it has tried. NGOs, for instance, can see what could be a deficiency of NGOs. Right, briefly there. If you can see here in this picture, the pivotal point is NGO. All the investment goes to NGO. But once you take that out from there, the whole system collapses. An NGO is dependent on funds from outside. So that's the deficiency of NGO. So government does realize that. So it always looks for alternative arrangements where it can improve the situation. And this is how probably the government has been trying to work. It provides credit, provides marketing support, livelihood support, natural resource management support, rural infrastructure. It has created a number of institutions. You can see SHGs, CIGs, or organizations here, SHGs, CIGs, cooperative societies, parks, producer companies, NGOs are there, a lot of kind of arrangements, MFI or contract farming or public-private partnership. So all kinds of forms of this is where Kavita was saying there's no single answer, but Kavita has always tried that. Multiple ways of trying to, and the latest development is to tie up with the large corporations. Because the beauty of large corporations is efficiency. Large corporations are efficient. That attracts us to be part of that, hoping that our small farmers also will become efficient. But there is a significant problem there in terms of the very design on which these farms are built. And the very grain of the small farmer is different. So when two grains with opposite characteristics tend to come together, we say in strategy that we grow a pig not to love it, but to get the pig finally to the game. We don't grow it out of loving, but we want it at the table. So therefore, so when the two grains are different, when the two DNAs are different, it could really become a problem, not in the short term, but in the long term. Not in the first 2 years. You might have the experience of ITC e-topa, not in the first 2 years, not in the first 3 years, but go down to 8 years, 10 years, there will be problems. Precisely because these are the kind of design issues or how they are based. They are all based on the same variables, but when you look at firms, large corporations, they are very large. They go for specialization on monocrops. They are large in capital base. They are high-end technology base. Competition today for large corporations, global firms, is essentially around logical capacity, innovation. Ownership is very high, asset ownership. Control mechanisms are very high. On the other hand, the small producers just on the opposite end. And we cannot manage it by themselves. They cannot get married to them. There has to be a number of, just like sending water from a big pipe to a small pipe. It needs not a lot of intermediate if you want to connect them, or adopt the DTS method. NRLM is a great savior. It's a great bright hope that we have today. It has come back to realize that the institutional platform of the poor is extremely important, and all resources will converge there. However, there are many questions that I have to this, in the sense that there are a number of institutions there, SLGs, federations, livelihood collectives, many more there. And some of these questions that can be raised is, how will the various local institutions interact with each other? Will there be duplication of resources and efforts because of multiple institutions? What will be the cost of operating each of these institutions? Who on behalf of the poor will interact with the market system? What are the challenges for a community to interact with the market system? What will be the role of PRR? Where do we start from? What will be our steps and sequences? I think maybe these are the reasons why the states have not been able to submit proposals to the Ministry of Rural Development and other. A lot of states are lagging behind. They're not able to come out with a proposal which will work in their respective states. There are a number of issues that are there. If these are not resolved again, I think we'll have many of those like NRLM, and then we'll go to something else after five years, after some committee goes and studies that does not be beneficial. Fundamentally, there are more significant problems in the institutional mechanism and the organizational arrangement that governments have adopted. I see, this is my own reading, the very orientation of the government is a top-down approach, whereas for communities we need a bottom-up approach. When it comes to governance principles, it is centralization, whereas we need decentralization. The management method used is capacity building of its own institution, government's own institution, and other institutions. It's not really capacity building of the local community and the local institutions, of people's institutions, at the grassroots level. It is, of course, large hierarchical, whereas you need smaller, simpler structures. When you look at research, innovation methods, research is extremely reductionist in method, whereas you need more holistic research. We look at scaling up. Immediately we were proposal to the government that I should just scale it up, and that's where all the problems begin. Whereas you need to replicate. DDS is not to expand across the globe, but similar DDS is needed to be replicated. Not scaling up, because there are many complexities that come in once you start scaling up. There are issues of scaling up. And the main problem that will come in is the distance between the participants will increase, the participation will reduce, and therefore the whole process will backfire again. So there is an issue of size, and because of this logic, the 3 committees out of 25 committees of cooperatives have been suggesting right from 1937, the first suggestion 1937, sometimes again in the 50s, then again in the 70s, 2-3 suggestions, and increasingly now it's becoming more and more important. There is a limit to size at which you can achieve these objectives for the small, for the psychologically weak, for the socially weak, and economically weaker sectors. Otherwise, it's difficult to really marry the two. Indicators, I think all of us, you are all aware of issues there. We talk about food security at a global level. It's actually food security and nutrition security at the local level. That's the first concern. We talk about gross income, it's actually net income for the farmer and the student. We look at NPK, but the scientists in organic agriculture say not NPK, but carbon content or life in the soil is what you should look at, and NPK will get filled up automatically in its use process. Or we talk about GDP, so that's now clearly understood. More appreciate this point that GDP is not the issue, but more of well-being is what the issue is. So most of the, whether it is orientation or governance principle or management methods or research innovations or indicators to measure, all that is followed by the government, by the existing institutions, these large institutions that are supposed to facilitate this process, are actually on something else which does not facilitate what you want. So the purpose and the methods are different, and therefore it's very challenging to actually achieve what we want. There's also an issue here with us, the academics or the scholarship. This is my own reading, and I think the challenge is not about understanding each of them independently, whether you're talking about competition models or cooperative models, but the issue is always about what is the transitional strategy. How do we transit from one state to another state? There are no answers from the academics. difficult for us to soil our hands and actually understand what's going on the ground and then accordingly suggest. But we can say, okay, if it is in a competitive market space, what conditions will facilitate something to happen, or in a cooperative situation, what conditions or what factors will facilitate. But the issue is not about its ideal state, but it's about how to transit from one state to the other. To me, these two, perfect market competition or perfect community cooperation, are actually two sides of the same coin. Either of them is beautiful. There's no problem in either of them, in the ideal state. But we don't exist in ideal state. And therefore all these problems are being faced. And to me, actually all the kinds of organizations are in this spectrum of either leading from perfect market competition to perfect community cooperation. All enterprises, whether it is Birla's or Microsoft, or whether